The first shiver of wrongness came not as a sound, but as a scent. Alistair was already at the balcony doors, his broad back, a tense, black silhouette against the moon-washed sky. The corded muscle in his forearms, usually so controlled, was taut as steel cable. He was utterly still, yet every line of his body thrummed with a predatory alertness that made the fine hairs on her arms rise. "Alistair?" Her voice was a sleep-thickened whisper. He didn't turn. "Stay inside." The command was low, guttural, a tone he'd never used with her. Then she heard it, a soft, scraping click from the roof above, like a dagger being dragged over terracotta tile. Another followed. Then a third, moving with a stalking, deliberate weight. Her breath hitched. Alistair's head tilted, tracking the unseen movement with an unnerving precision. A low rumble started deep in his chest. A vibration she felt through the mattress more than heard a warning growl that belonged to a creature of the deep woods. Not a man in a penthouse. The scraping moved, faster now, skittering along the edge of the rooftop before fading into the rustle of the cypress trees lining their property. The foreign scent began to dissipate, chased away by the night breeze. Only then did Alistair turn. The civilized mask was back, but it was fractured. In the dim light, his eyes held a faint, phosphorescent gold, like embers banked in a forge. The sight sent a primal jolt of fear through her, so sharp and sudden it was almost tasteable, metallic on her tongue. He crossed the room in 3 swift, silent strides and knelt by the bed, his hands framing her face. His skin was fever-hot. "You are safe," he murmured, his thumb stroking her temples. "You will always be safe. I swear this to you." "What was that?" she managed, her own voice trembling. "A shadow," he deflected, his gaze dropping to her lips, then back to her eyes, as if memorizing her. "This world, it has shadows, Elara, jagged and full of teeth. And my only purpose is to keep them from you." He gathered her into his arms, his embrace a fortress, his heart a frantic drum against her ear. She could feel the residual tension coiled in his muscles, the beast still close to the surface. He had built this life for her, a palace of glass and steel, every comfort imagined, every desire anticipated. It was a gilded perfection she had never questioned. But as he held her, whispering promises of safety into her hair, the lingering ghost of that feral scent taunted her. The memory of his guttural growl echoed in the silent room. For the first time, the walls of her beautiful cage felt terrifyingly thin, and she wondered, with a cold, dawning dread, if the most dangerous shadow was the one cast by the man who loved her. The first claw of terror tore into her not from a sound, but from the silence. The deep, pre-dawn hush was absolute, a held breath in the throat of the night. Then, the security system's gentle hum died. The soft, ambient glow of the control panel by the door winked out, plunging the bedroom into a silence so profound that Elara could hear the frantic drum of her own heart. The air grew heavy, stale, as if the house itself had been sealed in a tomb. A single, sharp crack from the grounds below shattered the stillness. The sound of a thick branch, snapped not by wind, but by force. She was on her feet, the cold marble a shock against her bare soles. Another sound followed, a low, guttural snarl that vibrated through the floorboards. A sound of pure, mindless hunger that froze her in place. It was answered by another, and another, a chorus of nightmares closing in. Alistair's drills, once an absurd ritual, now screamed in her memory. She ran, her silk nightgown whipping around her legs. The hallway stretched, an endless tunnel of shadows. Behind her, the great stained glass window of the main hall exploded inwards, a kaleidoscope of shards and a torrent of bestial forms. The scent hit her, then wild fur, damp earth, and the sharp smell of danger. She slammed her palm against the hidden panel. The panic room door hissed open and then sealed behind her, the electronic lock engaging with a definitive thud. The sterile, battery-powered lights flickered on, illuminating the small space. Her breath came in ragged, sobbing gasps as she fumbled for the bank of monitor screens, her fingers slick with cold sweat. The world outside was chaos. Her manicured gardens were a churned mess of mud and torn-up roses. Dark, heavily muscled shapes, more nightmare than wolf, moved with a horrifying, disjointed speed. Their eyes burned with a sickly yellow light. She saw Gregor, the head of day security, raise his sidearm before one of the creatures lunged. The screen went dark. A sob caught in her throat. "Where are you?" As if her despair were a beacon, a black sedan screeched through the main gates, tearing up the cobblestone drive. The door flew open before it had fully stopped. Alistair. He wore only his dark trousers and a white shirt, the fabric clinging to him, soaked through from the frantic drive. He didn't pause, didn't assess. He moved into the fray like a storm given form. He was a blur of brutal, efficient motion. She watched, her hand pressed to her mouth, as he grabbed a creature by the scruff of its neck and slammed it into the stone wall with a crack that echoed through the audio feed. His face was a mask of feral rage. A side of him she had only ever seen glimpses of, now fully, terrifyingly unleashed. Then a massive beast, larger than the others. Its fur, a matted, brindled gray, broke from the pack and charged him. Alistair turned to meet it, and a roar tore from his throat that was utterly inhuman, a sound of tectonic plates grinding, of a mountain breaking apart, and he began to change. Elara's mind screamed in denial. His shirt tore away as his form expanded. His body shifted with sounds both terrible and ancient, primal forces she couldn't name. His skin darkened, rippled, and was consumed by a surge of silver fur that gleamed under the security lights. He swelled in size, his humanity dissolving into a colossal, archetypal wolf, all primal power and terrifying grace. The great gray beast lunged, and the silver wolf Alistair met it with a fury that shook the camera. He was faster, stronger, his movements a lethal dance that ended with the rival creature defeated at his feet. The silver wolf stood panting over his fallen opponent, his massive sides heaving. The remaining creatures whimpered and faded back into the shadows from whence they came. Silence descended once more, broken only by the drip of water from a shattered pipe and the wolf's heavy breaths. Then, slowly, it turned its massive head, its eyes, no longer stormy gray but a burning, intelligent gold, lifted from the carnage and locked directly onto the security camera. It was a conscious, knowing act. The beast saw the lens, saw the tiny, terrified woman behind it. In those ancient, glowing eyes, she saw the ghost of the man she loved, and the terrifying truth of the creature he housed. The world she knew didn't just crack, it shattered, and the pieces fell around her, each one sharp enough to draw blood. The door to the panic room did not simply open. It groaned inward, its metal frame bent and twisted by a force that was not human. He filled the doorway, a silhouette of ruin against the flickering emergency lights of the hall. The civilized man was gone, erased by the night's violence. Alistair stood before her, his chest heaving, his once white shirt hanging in torn fabric that revealed long scratches already healing over corded muscle. The scent that rolled off him was a brutal, symphony-cold night air, rich, loamy earth, and beneath it all, the wild, electric smell of the storm he carried within. Elara scrambled backward until the cold steel of the wall bit into her spine, halting her retreat. Her heart was a frantic, trapped thing beating against her ribs. She could not look away from the proof of him, the raw power, the animal stillness, the faint, golden embers still smoldering in the depths of his eyes. He took a single step into the small room, and the space seemed to shrink, the air thickening with his presence. Elara. Her name was a rasp, a sound torn from a throat more accustomed to a beast's roar. "Stay back," she whispered, the words brittle with a terror so complete it felt like dying. "What are you?" He flinched as if struck, the pain in his expression stark and human. "I am the man who loves you," he said, his voice low and desperate. I am the man who has loved you since the moment I saw the sunlight caught in your hair. Do not, she choked out, tears finally spilling hot and silent down her cheeks. Use your poetry on me. Not now. The man I love does not become something else entirely, a protector. The word was a whip crack, the alpha's command surfacing, stripping the gentleness from his tone. He took another step, his gaze pinning her, a guardian. This estate, this fortune, it is all just a shield. My true world is one of pacts and territories, of bloodlines and ancient curses that fester with each passing moon. The beasts that came tonight are not mindless animals. They are my kind, fractured, feral, desperate. We are on the brink of a war that would tear this world apart in chaos and fire. Her mind reeled, trying to fit the impossible truth into the shape of her life, into the memory of his hands, gently cupping her face, his laughter in her ear. Why? The question was a broken thing. Of all the people in the world, why did you choose me? He closed the final distance between them, but he did not touch her. He simply knelt, bringing his eyes level with hers, the storm in them laid bare. Because you are the lunicist. He breathed, the words filled with a reverence that felt like a cage, a story we tell our young to give them hope, a human spirit so pure, so resonant, it can soothe the raging beast inside us. Your presence is a balm, your bloodline a key to a peace we have not known for 1,000 years. I sought you out to save my people. Yes, to prevent this war. The confession landed not as a revelation, but as a demolition, the whirlwind courtship, the immediate, all-consuming intensity. The way he had isolated her in this beautiful fortress, it was all a carefully laid trap. She was not his wife. She was a sacred object, a strategic asset, a key to be turned in a lock. He must have seen the shattering in her eyes. His hand rose, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers, still warm with the evidence of his other nature, gently brushed a tear from her cheek. The touch was agonizingly familiar. But the love, he whispered, his voice crumbling at the edges. Finding you, knowing you, that was not part of the plan. That was a cataclysm. That part was never a lie. She stared at him, at the man and the creature fused into one impossible being. The foundation of her entire world had been pulverized, and in the choking dust of its collapse, only one question remained, small and devastating. When you touch me, she asked, her voice hollow, is it the man loving the woman? Or is it the alpha, securing his most vital weapon? The scent of him arrived first, a cold, smoky aroma of clove and frost that coiled through the sun-drenched library, a stranger in the familiar air of old paper and beeswax. Elara looked up from the page she hadn't been reading, her blood running a degree colder. A man leaned against the far bookshelf, tall and carved from shadow, where Alistair was built of solid, sun-warmed stone. His smile was a sharp, polished blade. So the rumors did not do you justice, he said, his voice a low, intimate purr that seemed to slither across the space between them. The Luna kissed. I expected a symbol, a relic. I did not expect such. Life. Every instinct screamed for her to run, to call for the guards whose silence now felt like a verdict. Get out, she said, the words brittle. He pushed off the shelf, his movement fluid and unnervingly silent. So quick to dismiss me. Your husband has told you his version of our history, I assume? A noble alpha, guarding a fragile peace? He stopped just beyond the circle of lamplight, his eyes, the color of a winter twilight, absorbing the light and giving nothing back. He speaks of unity, but his methods are conquest. My sister, Elara, sought only to lead her own pack, to follow her own traditions. Your Alistair saw it not as a right, but as a rebellion. His justice was cruel beyond death. It left her broken, her spirit shattered, her very essence hollow. He painted a new horror with every word, transforming the man she knew from a protector into a tyrant, his love for her into the ultimate act of possession. He spoke of ancient rights of dominance, of a power struggle not for peace, but for absolute control, suggesting she was the crown in that brutal game. A sudden, anguished howl tore through the evening, a sound of raw, unbearable pain from the courtyard below. It was not a sound of attack, but of internal agony. Elara was moving before thought, her fear for herself forgotten, the stranger's poisonous words momentarily silenced. She burst out into the torchlit yard. A young guard, one she recognized from the gates, was on his knees in the gravel. His body shook violently, caught in the grip of transformation he couldn't control. A circle of pack members stood at a distance, their faces etched with pity and fear. This was a newly turned wolf, losing the battle with the beast within. Alistair emerged from the house, his expression grim, his focus on containing the threat. But Elara was already walking forward, her steps steady on the crunching gravel. The others called out for her to stop, but their voices were a distant buzz. All she could see was the boy's terror, the human fighting the creature and losing. She did not reach out to touch him. She simply knelt a few feet away, within the dangerous radius of his trembling form. "Look at me," she said, her voice not a command, but an anchor. His wild, rolling eyes found hers. The desperate sounds dying in his throat became ragged pants. A warmth, like the first touch of sunlight after a long winter, bloomed in the center of her chest. It was not heat, but calm, a tangible, radiating serenity that flowed from her and wrapped around his torment. The frantic tension in his shoulders eased. The animal glare in his eyes softened, receding to reveal the bewildered young man beneath. He whined, low and deep, and lowered his head to the gravel in a gesture of profound, exhausted submission. From the shadows of the library doorway, KL watched. The polished smirk was gone, replaced by a look of pure, avaricious hunger. He had heard the legend, but now he had witnessed the miracle. His voice cut through the stunned silence, cold and precise. "A power like yours, little Luna, is meant to be wielded, not hidden away by an alpha too weak to use it. If the Lord of Silvermane will not claim his key to dominance, then I will." His gaze, sharp enough to draw blood, locked with hers. "I challenge him for the right, to his territory, to his title." He let the final, unspoken claim hang in the air, a poison in the night. "To you." The scent of fear was a thick fog in the great hall, choking the air. Pack members moved in hushed, frantic patterns, their movements sharp with a tension that felt like a drawn blade. Alistair stood before the massive stone hearth, his back to the room, his shoulders a rigid line of contained fury. In his hand, he clutched a single sheet of vellum, the formal challenge, sealed with Kale's mark, a jagged peak drenched in black wax. He did not turn as she approached, but his stillness was a scream. "The jet is waiting on the private tarmac," he said. His voice scraped raw. He held out a slim, black dossier. "Switzerland is secure. He cannot trace you there. You leave in an hour." Elara looked at the extended folder, at the hand that held it, the same hand that had traced the line of her jaw with unbearable tenderness, now clenched white-knuckled around her escape. The frantic energy of the pack, the scent of their dread, the weight of his despair, it all pressed in on her, a suffocating blanket. This was the culmination of his every fear. The beast in him had brought the war to her doorstep. She did not take the dossier. Instead, she stepped forward, her silk skirt whispering against the stone floor. She placed her hands over his, feeling the violent tremor he was trying to suppress. She gently pried his fingers open and took the folder. For a single heartbeat, he thought she had accepted his command, a flicker of agonizing relief in his stormy eyes. Then, with a slow, deliberate tear, she ripped the dossier in two. The sound was shockingly loud in the tense silence. She let the pieces fall to the floor between them, a declaration written in ruined paper. His breath caught. "Elara, this is not a game. He will tear this world apart to get to you." "No." The word was quiet, but it cut through the air like a shard of ice. You have spent a lifetime building cages, Alistair. First for the beast you believe is a curse, and then for me, the wife you believe is a weakness. She reached up and cupped his face, her thumb stroking the tight line of his jaw. You see your love for me as a crack in your armor. Tears she had held back for days finally fell, but they were not tears of fear. They were an absolution. I love the man, she whispered, her voice breaking with the force of her conviction. And I will learn to love the wolf because they are both you. You sought me for a prophecy. You will keep me because I choose to stay here with you. A shudder racked his powerful frame. The rigid control he had maintained over himself, over his pack, over his entire world, shattered. He pulled her into his arms, his face buried in the curve of her neck, and a single, ragged sob was torn from him. It was the sound of a fortress gate crumbling, of a king kneeling before his queen. Later, they stood together on the balcony overlooking the assembled pack. Torches flickered, casting dancing shadows on hundreds of upturned faces, human and wolf, all etched with the same dread. The air thrummed with their collective anxiety, a discordant symphony of fear. Elara felt it like a physical pressure, a storm about to break. Then, that warmth bloomed again in her chest. No longer a fleeting spark, but a steady, brilliant sun. It pulsed out from her, a wave of serene authority that washed over the crowd. The frantic whispers died, the tense postures eased. She felt Alistair's hand tighten in hers, not in possession, but in partnership. She took a single step forward, her voice carrying not as a shout, but as a clear, unwavering truth that settled over them all. Let them come. In the profound silence that followed, her words were not a challenge, but a destiny fulfilled. The sheltered wife was gone. In her place stood a woman crowned in moonlight, her gaze steady on the horizon, her heart a drumbeat for the war to come. The night held its breath, waiting for her command. The end.